I think we are good to go ahead and get started if everyone take their seats and trickle in. I'm John Stark. I'm the Director of Data Governance here at the Management Performance Hub. More kind of dovetailing into Brian's discussion, we've also been, I'm sure, a shock to no one, doing a lot of AI governance as well. So if you have questions about that, happy to chat about data governance or AI governance later. Today, really happy and proud to have a couple of folks from the EDM Council with us. We have Peter Holden, the Senior Government Advocate, and Jim Halcomb here with us today. Jim's the Chief Research and Development Officer at the EDM Council and one of the original founders or framers of the DCAM. So with that, I'll turn it over to them.
Great, thanks, John. Welcome, everyone. This is quite a crowd. We're between you and lunch, I guess. But again, welcome. EDM Council welcomes you to this session. This session today is about the power of partnership, advancing data best practices with Indiana and the EDM Council. So the two individuals that John mentioned, Jim Halcomb, he's our Chief Research and Development Officer, which means he focuses around products, training, and communities of practice. I'm Peter Holden. I am responsible for bringing on new members, Senior Advocate of Government, bringing on new members in the government realm, and working with our existing partners like IMPH. What is the EDM Council's mission? Our mission is to be Global Data Management Association for elevating data management, data innovation, and analytics through best practices, standards, training, education, and research. We believe in a responsible data-driven organization and establishing data literacy for all. We are a neutral nonprofit industry forum. We advocate for industry collaboration to advance data management and analytic capabilities for all organizations. You can see here that we were established in 2005, so basically a 20-year-old company. We're a worldwide organization, 8 different regions that we're focused in on, and we've got over 370 member firms that are a part of the organization with over 25,000 professionals. Next is our areas of advocacy. Those focus on best practices, driving standards, training and research and benchmarking, regulatory engagement, and networking. If we look at best practices, I think most of you have heard of DCAM, Data Capability Assessment Model Framework. That's one of our best practices. CDMC is another one, Cloud Data Management. And then we have special interest groups that focus in on a couple areas around data ROI and ESG. When you're looking at driving standards, it's our community of practice. BCBS 239 is one of the areas that we're focused in on, and that's around data strategically. And then we also have Knowledge Graph, which is obviously putting the links together through open ontologies. Our training and certification, so these we offer open, dedicated, and virtual training courses. So you can take these on your own virtually. You can take them through our open classes, which are throughout the year at different times for different parts of the country. We have over 7 e-learning training and certifications. So with the DCAM, you could get trained and certified as one example. And then we have educational webinars. Moving on to research and benchmarking. So global and regional industry studies around data management, cloud data management, and data sharing. And we also have vertical industry benchmarks. An example would be life sciences. From a regulatory engagement, so we have a lot of regulators that are in the federal government and throughout government. We work very closely with those regulators. So those regulators participate in our agenda. So if you think of the likes of FDIC, SEC, Federal Reserve, and others. And as far as networking, so when you join the council, when you become a member, you all get your own email address, and I'm sure a lot of you in the room have your own email address. And that puts you in connection with our EDM Connect community, which allows you to get access to all this information that I'm talking about and that Jim will also be talking about. We have forums. We have CDO council forums. We have women in data professionals. So you don't have to be a woman to join this group, but that's one of the focus areas for our forums. We also have a public sector forum, which we started. I'd love to see you all participate in that. We've had very good success with that. It's really a knowledge sharing. It's a specialized group that comes together to talk about what's going on in the public sector. And people present different. We had the General Accountability Office come in and talk about their relationship with fraud, a fraud ontology that they talked about. We also have many conferences and summits. Our flagship conference is called Data Vision. That's held in New York in the December timeframe. So love to have you all. John's participated in those as well. These are just some of our member organizations. You can see that we got our start in the banking and financial area. So you look at Bank America, many different banks listed here. Across the center, you'll see some of our public sector organizations that I'll talk to a little bit. But really, it's a broad brush of member organizations, not exhaustive, but some of our industry leaders, based on international groups as well participate. Next, I wanted to talk about some of our illustrious, one of our favorite members of all time is the IMPH, of course. We also work with the state of Arizona and state of Maryland. Some of the other regulators that I mentioned and some of the other organizations. This is not a complete list of our public sector organizations, but USDA, Army, Department of Commerce, DISA, Department of Treasury, and Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Sallie Mae, GAO, Federal Reserve Board. They're one of the ones that endorses the use of DCAM, which Jim will talk a little bit more about. And then down at the bottom, we have some of our international government organizations. And finally, we're affiliated with many trade organizations, so we work very well together. When you think about DEMA and the DEMBOK, we work very closely with that organization. Open Geospatial, we have quite a few government organizations that are involved around geospatial. So that Open Geospatial Consortium is a part of the work that we're doing with those government agencies like USDA. And there are just a few others to name there, Data Foundation, Glyph. So these are all organizations that we work with us, along with the EDM Council. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
Can you hear me okay? Data Day, I love it. You know, this is actually like the best thing ever. Thanks, John. Thanks for having us. Who here is a data person? And I guess the rest of you are data curious, so welcome. So we've got a couple of things. There's so much that I could talk about, but I'm just going to focus on, I think, what the key things are that you need to know about the council. Because as members of the council, as Peter mentioned, all you have to do is just register on EDM Connect, okay? So when you go there, you'll get you'll get whatever you want to get in terms of information. You can get a lot, you can get a little, you can have complete control over it, but I definitely encourage you to go and sign in and register on EDM Connect, because that's where all the good stuff is. So some of which I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to be talking about what are our flagship frameworks, as well as our communities of practice, which I think is really valuable. And then we're going to leave some time to have a conversation with John. But as some of you know, hopefully you're in this room that came to our table, I really want you to ask whatever questions you want to ask. Ask me anything, basically. I've been doing this for a long time. And if you have burning questions about what is data governance or data management or whatever, please, I encourage you to just be open and ask whatever questions you have at the end. Okay, so our flagship frameworks. Let's see if we can make sense of that, because it's not the easiest thing in the world, even to data folks. Those of you who raised your hand, it's been a learning process, right? You weren't necessarily born a data person. You probably had to earn your stripes through pain and suffering and wondering why is it that things are not better, right? And it's because until we put together the DCAM, and I was involved, as he mentioned, I was one of the founders of framing data management as a discipline. So prior to the DCAM, I had actually written something called the DMM, which is now part of the CMMI, if anybody's familiar with that. So I started that, but the DCAM came after that, and the DCAM is much better. For a lot of different reasons, but I'm going to talk about the DCAM and also the CDMC. Okay, so DCAM, Data Management Capability Assessment Model. So first and foremost, it is a measurement tool. It is designed for being able to understand the breadth and depth of the capabilities that you currently have in your organization around managing your data assets. So what it's not, and this is an important distinction, it's not going to tell you how to manage data. Okay, so, but insofar as it is a good measurement tool, it will tell you, it represents all of the processes, the data management processes that we call capabilities. It represents all of the things that you need to be doing if you're going to be effectively managing your data. So you can use it from that context of like, well, how much do I need to know about data management? From a topical level, the DCAM is about as far as you need to go for a while. Unless you have any specific things that fall outside of it, which do occur. But we, in the DCAM, represent the totality of data management processes that you need to be concerned with. Now, what gives me the confidence to say that? The communities of practice. So the EDM Council's been around since 2005 and has engaged with industry with documenting best practices, because we all needed to kind of come together to make that happen. We were all just kind of making things up as we went along. So we needed to have something that was a little bit more representative of what everybody was doing and struggling with, so that we could get our arms around it. Okay? And so some of the things that you need to understand also about capabilities is that the processes that we define in the DCAM, you can apply to many different things. So we take into account all sorts of things like program design, organizational change, funding, engineering, technology architecture. We have a version 3 that's coming in July, and late June, early July. And version 3 will also, we've gone through and reviewed through our communities of practice on AI, on data products, on data marketplace. We talk about all these other things that we call more in the solution space. And if there are capabilities that we identify that are needed in order to support those activities, we include them in the DCAM. We just don't call them out by name. Like data security is not, in our opinion, an area of data management. It's a set of requirements for which you manage your data against. So we don't include things like privacy and security as specific areas of data management, because in our view that they're not. But they definitely are needed in order to achieve those outcomes. So Other than a measurement tool, what else does the DCAM do for you? Well, because it sets out that scope of all the things that you need to be doing to have an effective data management organization, which is governance as well as many other things that we have defined in the DCAM. It also establishes a common language because organizations do have trouble in having a conversation around data because there's no standard set of terminology. People think about and do it in different ways, right? So by doing DCAM training in your organization, it's a good way to start developing your data culture so that people have some kind of common language to talk about data management. And there's no better way to educate an organization than doing an assessment. Because every time I'm in a class, I want to know, well, how does this apply to me? If only somebody knew like the world that I live in and could translate this stuff that they're trying to teach me into something that I understand. An assessment will do that for you. So I do strongly encourage that all of you in agencies who are thinking about doing assessments and doing training, assessments are a great way to do training. I'm not saying don't do the training. I want you to do the training, right? So, but I just wanted to get that point across. So it establishes that common language, and it allows you to actually not only measure what you're doing, but to also benchmark. So organizations that do assessments, they report them back to the EDM Council, and the EDM Council has a repository of assessment results that then you can see how you compare to, you can see how you can compare to each other, you can see how you can compare to the industry at large, okay? So, and it also serves as just a benchmark against industry documented best practice, right? So the goal is obviously to have trust and confidence in your data. I don't think I need to tell the data people that. I think that you're probably all pretty passionate about making sure that the data actually helps you accomplish your mission. And so, as I mentioned, it's used for a variety of different reasons, not just to measure. It's for the industry benchmarking, the training, the compliance, program initiatives, and assessments as well, of course. And to what Peter brought up, so what the Federal Reserve has done is that the OIG, which is the Inspector General, is using the DCAM to hold them accountable for their data management best practices against the DCAM, okay? And we're seeing that more and more. We're seeing more states, even things I can't talk about yet, and I really want to, but there's more to come. DCAM is going global. It's becoming not just a business standard, de facto standard, which it has been for a while, but it's now increasingly becoming policy across the world, actually. So maybe a simple way to think about what is the DCAM instead of going through like the whole soup to nuts. It's based on some four foundational tenets. Obviously, managing your data as content, right? Managing it as meaning is extremely important to be able to do the job of data management, is to know the data and what it means. So that's a very important tenet. Being able to define the data, identify the data, et cetera. Also to be able to build a sustainable program. It's hard to be able to continue to get funding and support if you don't have some way of establishing the status of your program and what its growth can be, in terms of filling gaps against a benchmark. So it helps with building a sustainable program. Obviously, data quality, right? We wouldn't care. And there are two reasons why we care, I think, about data management. One is because the quality is bad and we need to fix it, or somebody's telling us we have to do it, right? And for the most part, the DCAM was designed for the first. We were thinking about data management and data quality from a business perspective. Then lastly, being able to enable cross-organizational collaboration. Now, what I would say of all of these, and they're all equally important in many, but I think that the trend right now is tending towards the cross-organization collaboration, right? Who's having trouble with coordinating across like security and privacy and connecting that with data? Any hands? Yeah, right. And technology, of course, because data governance and technology sometimes aren't always on the same page, right? So I think that's the biggest challenge, and frankly, I think the reason why is because the tools have gotten better. And as the tools have gotten better, you'll have parts of the organization that just kind of fix their own problems. And that doesn't help with data quality, because I'd rather, as an executive, get an answer to, if I'm going to ask a question, I should get the same answer regardless of whom I ask. Otherwise, I'm going to start worrying, right? So when people start fixing their own data problems, you start coming up with different answers to the same question, and that's not good, right? I'm going to get through some of this because I know that we want to save time for our chat. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of run through a top level of the DCAM. So the first thing to understand is that, so we have 8 components. The 8th one is optional, it's analytics. Not everybody recognizes analytics as part of their data supply chain, so that's why it's optional. But for those who do have analytics, you should include it. The 8 components that we call them, we call this a Frisbee, by the way. So you can kind of get your data management program and make it fly, right? So the 8 components are roughly in order of what you would do first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, right? So we've kind of organized it. Even though I said it's not a how-to, we try to give some guidance around what would be your priorities. And the first one, of course, is your data strategy. Absolutely essential, because there's more data in all of our organizations that we can possibly get our arms around effectively. You got to make a choice about what you're going to prioritize, what you're going to focus on. And so that data strategy is going to lay out the scope of the organization, the scope of the data. And of course, if you can't, and that's going to then inform the business case that you're going to present in order to get the funding, right? So that has to be step 1. Step 2 is once you've made that case and then you get the funding, and the program and funding component represents all the capabilities that you should have in place for managing that process. Then moving on to 3, it's once you've got the funding and you've kicked off your projects and you have your strategy, that's when the architects come into play, right? You know, they're going to start thinking about how does that scope break down and how are they going to design for supporting the outcomes that they're driving towards, and how does the existing architecture support the business as usual. In finance, we call it run the bank, change the bank. So you can kind of run the agency, change the agency. I don't know if you use that or not. Then on to 4 is technology, addressing what are the components of your technology architecture that's supporting your data management program. Data quality, governance, controls, and sustainability. This is changing. I'm really excited about version 3. I can't wait to be able to talk about it, but we've got a couple more months before we can have fun with that one. And then analytics, AI, and Gen AI. So that's kind of the complete top level. If you want to learn more, we have excellent courses. We get top ratings from students all the time. I am really proud that we have some of the best instructors I've ever known. I mean, these are people who are actually doing the work. So I highly encourage that you look into doing the training. We have open courses and dedicated courses. I think we're working on like how we're going to support that with the overall organization. But the training is really good and it's going to get better. So I do encourage you to do the training, even though I was saying, you know, an assessment is the best training possible, but the training itself is definitely worth the effort. We offer, as I mentioned, instructor-led e-learning and then dedicated. We're probably going to kind of come up with some kind of dedicated format. And then if you take and pass the exam at the end, then you get a badge, and you can proudly display that in your email and on LinkedIn. Okay, we have something that we established called the Data Excellence Program. Basically, what that is to recognize organizations who have made the decision to step on the path. Oh. Yeah. Did my thumb get a little overactive there? Okay, sorry. So the Data Excellence, I'll take my thumb off the trigger. All right, so the Data Excellence Program is there to recognize organizations who are making investments into data management by doing assessments, by doing trainings, by establishing plans for improvement. So that's been very successful because there's not a lot of, actually there's no recognition, official recognition for any organization in data management except what we've got here. So this is really the only game in town when it comes to proudly, being recognized for the work that you're doing. Oh, that's just okay. I'm just going to skip. I don't think that we need to go into depth on that. I want to get right to the CDMC because it can be confusing. Why do we have two frameworks? Which one do I choose? Both, or just one. If you're going to choose just one, it's DCAM. DCAM is the foundation, okay? CDMC came along because, basically, one of our members had realized that the requirements that he was having to build for in order to help his bank move more definitively into the cloud, that he had to meet the same requirements that every bank had to meet. Why should he have to build it? Maybe if he just came up with the design, he could hand it over to his CSP and they would build it for him, and then they could sell that to other organizations. That's exactly what he did. He went to Google, and Google said, hey, do you know the EDM Council? You should work with them and make it a standard, and then we'll follow it and everybody else will follow it. So that's what we did. So really the CDMC is more around solving it's a solution. It's a solution for which that you can find now, and I'll get to the list, certified vendors who are certified against the CDMC. So the CDMC is really about who in here knows or is familiar with catalogs, data catalogs? Okay, so not everybody. You need to learn about, if you're a data person or you're a data curious person, data catalogs are all the rage, right? And I like to use it as a verb rather than as a noun. It's not just a menu of stuff that you have. It actually, there's technologies that are out there now that will automate the discovery of metadata in your environment, and some of them more than others can smartly help you organize that around concepts that make more sense. So catalogs have been increasingly more important, and the CDMC acknowledges that capability and is basically a solution design for being able to have automated control over all your data using cloud capabilities. So you don't have to have data in the cloud to use CDMC, but most of the tools that do the kinds of things that you want it to be able to do are in the cloud. So that's part of the reason for CDMC, the cloud part, but it doesn't have to be in the cloud. Sorry if that's confusing, but it's been kind of a journey, with all the changes in the technology and keeping up with the times. So we have there's two parts to CDMC. There's an assessment part, which is what capabilities that you have, and then there's the controls part. So I'm going to go through each one of those. The capabilities part is what you would, if you were wanting to migrate to the cloud and you want to have complete control over your data, the first thing you're going to need to do is figure out, do we have people doing stuff that's going to support what we need to do in the cloud? So that's where you get into the components and the capabilities, and then the controls, which I just outlined here. It starts with data control compliance. Do I have control over my data on a real-time basis? And then the second step, which is not automated, is that you have to have data ownership. So data ownership, having authoritative data sources, managing your data sovereignty and cross-border, those things, those first, or the second, third, and fourth thing, those are basically data governance. That's that's one of the ways which CDMC connects with DCAM. Then you have the data cataloging, the classification, the entitlements and access. A lot of that can be automated. Once you have the processes in place, and depending on what you're using, like ServiceNow or whatever, a lot of those are kind of part of your process and go into the mix. So it's really about leveraging what's already there in many cases, using the catalog of catalogs, controlling entitlements, controlling who is using what data for what purpose, controlling around security, controlling around data privacy, and then in this last bit here, data lifecycle and data and technical architecture, we get back into some things that are a little bit more manual. We're using a lot of tools there, but having your life cycle defined and what you're going to purge and what you're going to archive and things like that, that's going to be your data retention and archiving, and then data quality measurement, of course. Those all factor into your life cycle. And then data lineage, and now there are tools that actually do that, and it's really, really helpful, because I used to have to do data lineage on paper, and it was really hard. Okay, so the capabilities are more speaking not about the automation and the sequence of automating steps, and the capabilities are more about what you're manually doing, what capabilities you have in place, and getting a sense of, are we ready to move from current state to future state as we move into the cloud. So those capabilities start with governance and accountability, and then, kind of like the strategy part, right? You have to know, you have to have your ownership, and you have to have your sourcing in place, and then moving on to catalog and classification, so that classifications usually start with security, but don't limit yourself to that. Classifications are really powerful. Then getting into the access, there's a tight coupling between obviously the capabilities and the controls, and I've already kind of spoken to these, so I'm going to get through that. Wait, what happened? Did I get to thumb crazy? While he's doing that, any questions so far? Yes.
So, assessments.
We're still working on that, because a lot of people have done it themselves and haven't reported it. There are way more users than we're aware of. Because in order for it to be reported back to us under the current policy that we have, it has to be from a third party who's independently assessed an organization. They submit it. And most organizations don't want to pay somebody to come in and do it. They'll just do it themselves, and then they never tell us about it. But I'm constantly finding out that there are way more organizations that have been, and they're not all members either. I mean, we do put DCAM behind the membership wall, but it's been copied and pasted, and it's out there, and people are using it, and it's quite substantial, actually. Good question. Any other? Yeah. Is data quality and data governance in DCAM? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
When we ensure that the data is good, like how can we?
Oh, so are you asking, does a DCAM assessment tell you how good your data is?
Yeah.
No. But there's a specific governance. You can't know that unless you have governance. And the reason why you can't know if your data is good without governance is because governance should be comprised of the people who are responsible for the data. So, knowing how good the data is, you eventually have to know, well, who's responsible for the process that's created the data in the first place? Because they're going to be the expert on whether it's good or not, right? The goodness of your data doesn't depend on project to project. It depends upon the governance structure that you have and whether or not those owners that you've identified are acting responsibly and accountably to the data. What's happening more and more is that we're using data for things that it was never designed for. And that's another part of the governance where you're getting people coming in and saying, I need more information about your data. This is, I can't tell if it's right or wrong. It's confusing to me. Governance is also a big part of solving that problem as well, because you get into data descriptions and metadata and business glossary, and eventually, and Peter brought up a big word that probably went over most people's heads, I would think, is ontology. That's a really, what does that mean? It's a fancy word for modeling meaning. So how do DCAM and CDMC work together? CDMC is not really the same as DCAM. It rests on DCAM. DCAM is a capability model, very straightforward. CDMC is a little bit more complicated. What I tell most people is, and I'm going to get to, here it is, perfect, okay. If you want CDMC, there it is. You can go with Microsoft, Big ID, Google Cloud, Informatica. They all have capabilities that have been certified against the CDMC. So CDMC is more about a solution, but you can't really do what CDMC, what these tools are designed for, you can't do without governance. You need to have, like, as I was saying before, ownership, designating authoritative sources, things like that, that's governance, right? So all this automation that you can get from these certified solutions doesn't mean much if you don't have a governance practice in place. And if you don't have a governance practice in place, do an assessment. Because an assessment is an opportunity to recruit people who need to be part of your governance organization into a project that will help kickstart your governance activity. Any other questions? Okay. So yeah, these are the certified solutions. There's more to come. How are we doing on time? All right. You can download the CDMC for free, by the way. We do ask for your data, but that's it. Okay, so that's the framework. So I want to get into the communities of practice for a couple of minutes here, and then we're gonna have our chat, right? Okay. So communities of practice. Peter brought this up a little bit earlier. So this is kind of a moving target because especially with AI and a lot of the advances in technology, our industry is changing, and we're constantly coming together, building tribes around common questions and concerns in areas in the field, and so it's evolving. Obviously, we have an AI community. We have a couple of different communities, actually. We have a forum where there's, which is actually meeting today. I won't be able to be in it. They're talking about some pretty interesting stuff. So the forum is more kind of like mini webinars where practitioners are sharing their thoughts around either papers they've written or papers that they've read that they think are interesting, and there's a conversation that revolves around that. Then we also have a work group, and the work group is taking the CDMC that we just talked about and making it work for AI, so in analytics assets. So that's going to be coming. That's a new product, new framework. It's kind of a new evolution or addition to CDMC. We have a data marketplace and data product work group, data ROI. Data ROI is really interesting. There's a couple of papers. One of them I think is really cool is DataCo. And it talks about how organizations have taken the data out of their organization, put it into a separate legal entity in order to be able to evaluate it as an asset that they can put back onto their balance sheet. So this is, you're going to see a lot more of this, and it's not limited to just for-profit. We had a group around ESG data management. We have an industry sector around asset managers, so the big kind of mutual fund companies and asset management companies are involved right now in solving for the problem of how do we use AI to improve data. Because obviously, data requires, or AI requires a lot of data. How do we ramp that up? And so we're looking at ways that we can use AI to manage data. The public sector, as Peter mentioned, he's going to talk a little bit more about that because I'm going to hand it off to him for a minute or two. Another one that's close and near and dear to my heart is data risk. I think it's something that we're going to be doing over the coming years. It's not a short-term thing at all. It's really about embracing other parts of the organization that I mentioned, where data management has a little bit of a struggle, connecting the data management organization to the security organization, to the privacy organization, to the finance organization. Getting that cross-organizational collaboration is challenging. And so the data risk is embracing a number of those topics and bringing them together. And then Women Data Professionals is a very, very successful organization. I encourage both men and women to participate and get involved in the Women Data Professionals. Peter, you want to talk about the public sector?
Sure. I know we only have a few minutes here, so I'll be very brief. So this is thought leadership. So we run this forum where organizations come together. Our next one coming up is Thursday, June 5th, and it's actually John and his team presenting at that one. But it's all around thought leadership and sharing information with members and non-members.
Thanks, Peter. We also have a lot of webinars. You can check it out on our website. We're running out of time, so I don't want to get in the way of our fireside chat without a fire.
Yeah, a minute or two. I know we're in between you and lunch, but wanted to move on to this because I think there's some good information.
Yeah, so do you want me to kick it off? What does DCAM mean to you in the direction that you're taking things for MPH?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I'm a pretty transparent person to some of the people I've worked with on the DCAM assessments in the past. And, I came to this as a very inexperienced person, came to DCAM originally, not a whole lot of background, went through the training process, went through the certification process, and really started digging into the assessments. And I feel like it gives you kind of, I'm going to show my age and hobbies, but the cheat codes of data management to a certain extent, where you need to put your time, your efforts, your initiative, where the low-hanging fruit is, where the things that are maybe a little bit more of a lift, but are critical items, so.
And if you don't, do you have a question for me or you want me to? What is putting data on the map for the state of Indiana? Not on the literal map, but what is making it a priority?
Yeah. Helps if I don't turn my mic off. I think, data quality has always been an important part of this and data management as a whole, but as we're kind of hurtling more and more towards AI, that component of it is becoming more and more critical. The old adage of junk in, junk out is a thing because it's prevalent still in these systems. So focusing on, Pete has made it, our CDO has made it an initiative and a focus to really get down to the basics and make sure our basics, we're doing those right and well.
Yeah, and I would say, it's even becoming more important with AI because, when you feed junk into AI, it comes out like lipstick on a pig. No offense to pigs, but it just makes bad data look pretty, but it's still bad, right? We call them delusions, but.
Yeah, so obviously we have a booth out there, and one of our flagship articles is about IMPH and how they leverage DCAM. Was it easy in putting together your case study around leveraging our products?
I think so. Going back to the thought of cheat codes for data management of sorts, when you measure something, you have quantifiable data that you can wrap your hands around. You can I mean, it feels like it's right in front of you. It leads you in that direction. Now, obviously, I'm oversimplifying it to a certain extent, but the data is there, and it makes it really easy to evaluate what you're doing right, what needs improvement, and the path forward. We are probably close to time, but I do want to plug a couple of things. Just so everyone is aware, if you're a state government employee, if your email ends in in.gov, you have access to these resources. You can connect to the EDM Connect website. There's the groups that Jim mentioned. Get involved. Let's make this and shape this to what we want it to be, because through MPH, the rest of the agencies have this access. So always feel free to reach out to me as well. But the EDM Connect has a wealth of information. There are forums. People are always asking, different questions, trying to help each other. And then I'm going to plug the special interest group as well. Caitlin Christian, our Chief Engagement Officer from the Management Performance Hub, is going to be doing a presentation that I think is especially impactful around data and utilizing good quality data to make impactful change in communities. So hope everyone can, we'll send out the slides after, but hope everyone can attend that. I don't want to be in between anyone and lunch any more than what I have to, so I'll be around here. Feel free to come ask Jim or Peter any of the questions at the booth as well. But with that, we're going to wrap up. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.